Yes, to answer all of your questions on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, I've got iOS 11, okay? In order to review it, I want to take some time to use it. That's what I've been doing for the last day. Been playing around with all the different settings, all the different features, both on my iPhone and in my iPad, and quite a lot of YouTubers have already listed, 100 new features within iOS 11, so I figured that's kind of too broad and boring of a topic to just tell you exactly every single detail that's different. I've narrowed it down to my top 5 favorite changes with iOS 11, and I have to say, for all the changes that didn't make it to my top 5, iOS is a big welcome surprise. I did not think it would be this enjoyable. I knew it was kind of a wild card, but I knew that it would be kind of minor, but it really wasn't. The amount of changes we're going through has really reinvented the entire smartphone, and it makes me love my iPhone 7 that's over half a year old now, and it's like I have a whole new phone. Same with my iPad. iPad's 2 years old, and now it feels like an entirely new device. So let's begin with number 5. The refresh and redesign of the App Store, the iTunes Store, Mail, Messages, they've all kind of resembled what Apple Music looks like, which has made this very uniform experience. Now all of Apple's stock apps feel a lot more cleaner. They've got a different font across all of them, and now when you open the app, it tells you what app you're in or what you're doing within that app. And I get that a lot of people didn't really like the refresh to the App Store because you can't see as much stuff at once, but I think Apple went for a more minimalistic design because it works better with the operating system. You only show a certain amount of detail at once, and when you show too much on such a small screen, it's not that cool. But now with the App Store, it's not rows and rows of apps and all this text and all these numbers. It gives you enough information. It gives it a very minimalistic and clean look. So overall, this is just a preferable UI change that I love. So number 4 is Control Center customization. We all wanted 3D touch features. We all wanted more customization with Control Center, and boy, did we get it. Apple now has this whole list of widgets you can add to where the Control Center can fill your entire display if you wanted to. And I love it because it's only one panel now. You don't have to slide between multiple Control Center panels. Now you can keep it all on one, and if you need to expand them, of course, you just 3D touch on them, and it opens up tons of new options for brightness, volume, the Now Playing tab. All of that is really smart and really quick. I've timed myself on iOS 10 what I would have to do to skip music or see certain amounts of detail, and now with iOS 11, because of these 3D touch features and because they keep all of Control Center on one tab, it's a lot easier now. And you can make Control Center be minimalistic with a couple of buttons, or you can fill up the entire iPhone's display if you want to, if you want just infinite options in Control Center. Gotta admit, that's pretty great. I love that we can swipe up from the bottom and have quick access, unlike Android, where you have to swipe up from the top, and with the S8 display, that's kind of hard to reach. So iOS 11 makes me like iOS even more. Number 3, they finally built in a screen recorder into iOS. This is something I didn't really ask for in my wishlist video because I figured Apple wasn't into doing that. They were like, no, we don't want apps to screen record on the iPhone because that could reveal personal information, you could spy on people. But instead, Apple comes up with their own solution and actually builds it into the OS. You of course can record in landscape or portrait mode, both on the iPad and the iPhone. Now sadly, it doesn't record them at lossless quality, so when you do screen record, the quality isn't perfect. It's a little bit lower, but it's still legible, and you're watching it right now. As I'm showing these cutaway shots in iOS 11, I'm using the screen recorder, which has been extremely helpful. You can even watch YouTube videos and screen record them for later, which I don't know if YouTube's gonna be okay with that. They might have to update their settings, or Netflix might get a little mad, or there's certain things you can't screen record. Like if you're playing Apple Music in the background, screen recorder won't capture that. If you try to screen record an iTunes movie, it won't let you either. But so far with third parties, I've been able to, which is interesting and potentially unfair, but I'm just glad that that option is here. Now, number 2. Now, when you go into your AirPods settings, you can decide which AirPods double tap feature commands. You can say if you want your left ear to rewind and your right ear to skip when you double tap it, that is now an option. So now my AirPods, which I've had for months, have new functionality because of a software update, which is great. So maybe you don't rewind music very often, maybe you just skip. Then you could have the right ear for skipping and the left ear for Siri, or the left ear for play pause, or vice versa. They have lots of options now in the settings for you to tinker with your AirPods, and this is even something I suggested in the Series 2 version of AirPods. They literally did what I was hoping they would do. That's great, and I'm very happy with it. Okay, my number 1 favorite feature about iOS 11 is the multi-window support within the iPad. While the iPhone feels entirely reinvented with iOS 11, I think the iPad feels like an entirely new device. They've got a dock just like macOS, and before I think the most you could do on an iPad with iOS 10 was do a split screen multitasking with picture-in-picture, so you could be watching a video while running 2 apps. Now you can do split view multitasking while having a slide over window and having picture-in-picture. so you can be watching a video and using 3 apps all at the same time. Now, probably not going to do that very often, but my point is they're making the iPad actually a MacBook competitor, because now they have multitasking features built into iOS that can literally rival what you can do on a Mac, because a Mac you can have almost an infinite number of apps open at once, whereas the iPad was kind of limited that way. Not anymore. The iPad's not adopting a mouse, and that's important, but it's got a beta version of a file explorer, which I haven't found much use for yet, but I think that has potential. And the UI change, both with the dock and the multi-window support, I think is pushing to the idea of having an iPad as your standalone productivity device. This could actually, in the future, with the right third-party support and with the right processing power, compete with your MacBook and actually be a better product. I'm in love with iOS 11 on the iPad. It's such a massive upgrade, completely changes the UI. Multitasking's better now. They're designing it for a pro market, which I'm all for. I think the iPad is completely underrated and no one's giving it the attention it deserves. So that is my top 5 features. There's plenty of honorable mentions I had out there that didn't make my list, like changing the volume now doesn't cover up the display, which is great. When I change the volume, I don't see anything on the display now, which is actually fine. I'm just glad that nothing obtrudes the screen. The Apple Pencil features where you can just tap on the lock screen and go straight into notes is really nice. All kinds of great features like that didn't make the list, but I have to say, overall, totally on board with iOS 11. I'm even using beta software right now. There's still a ton of bugs, but I'm really, really enjoying myself. I am not interested in downgrading back to iOS 10. When it's available to everyone out in the public this fall, I hope all of you guys check it out because you're going to really love it. Let me know all your favorite iOS 11 features in the comments below. This is your Apple Sleep here, and I will see you in the next one.